Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Adobe Live. Good morning. Good morning for me, perhaps not for you. My name is Benjamin Ward. I'm one of the product managers on the Lightroom team. You are not here to see me. You are here to see my fantastic guest, Yannis Guibinga. He is going to be showing us some of his really, really amazing and striking photography today. And he'll also be walking us through how he works with his photography, both in Lightroom Classic and in Photoshop as well. Let me just say a couple of quick highs. And I want to tell you guys, over here on my left, I have an iPad where I'll be looking so that I can follow along on the chat. So if you see me like this, like looking over at the side, it's not that I've lost interest in what Yannis is saying. I'm just I'm just checking out the chat to see what you guys are saying. So if you're watching us on YouTube, awesome, welcome. But you might want to check out the live stream on behance.net, because if you're on Behance, you will see the chat pod and you will be able to comment and ask questions live during the session right there in the chat pod. I will be monitoring the chat. If you have questions for Yannis, post them there and I will relay those questions to Yannis during the show. Let's see here. Who do we have? I see Cody. I see Sean. I see Mallory. Thank you guys for joining us. Ferry. Hi, Ferry. So really great to see everybody here today. And I am super looking forward to today's show. I'm going to turn it over to Yannis because I cannot wait to see what he has to show us today. Yannis?
Hi, everyone.
Yannis, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off before I even let you get started. How's that for a smooth intro? There was one other thing, like sort of a housekeeping thing that I think I'm supposed to cover, which is that although this, of course, is the coolest episode of Adobe Live that we'll have today, we have a bunch more stuff coming up later today as well. We are here all day for Adobe Live. We've got Paul Tranny. Nope, we missed Paul Tranny already. So let's see, that was this morning. I know Paul. So today we're here right now with Yannis, and then coming up next, we'll have Creative Encore. That will also be with Paul Tranny. Awesome. And after that, editing video for social with James and Anna, and then an Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge with Howard. So lots of good stuff coming up today after this show here as well, so you can stay with us. And this time, for real, I'm going to turn it over to Yannis. Yannis, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Yannis Davy Guibinga. I am a 25 years old photographer from Gabon, currently based in Montreal. And I am primarily a portrait photographer exploring the diversity and the identities and cultures on the African continent and its diaspora. And so I do it through the use of color and fashion and that kind of thing to kind of create images and to kind of tell stories related to like these kinds of topics. And so today I'm going to be editing a series that I did for something called the Adobe Love Project, which was about essentially the love of culture and tradition. And yeah, so we will go through, I'm not sure how many photos we're going to be able to edit today. I'm aiming for 8, but I don't know that we're going to be able to do 8. So we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to share kind of my process with you all, and yeah, and to make mistakes in front of you too. That'll be fun.
But those are very educational, though, so
Yeah,
it'll be great.
because that's definitely about to happen, I think. Especially because this series is kind of, some of these photos are kind of editing heavy. Like I'm gonna need to do, well, at least compared to what I do usually, because some images I don't really need to do a lot. Like an image like this one, for instance. Like this one, for instance, I did not really do a whole lot to the image, right? I just took the photo and maybe like retouched some blemishes here and there on the ground. And then that's it. And then some other, like in other photos, you need to do like a little more complex editing work, which I think is going to happen today. So we'll see how it goes. And yeah, so I'm gonna start. So I did a very quick pre-selection of the images. So we have now 54 images. And so I'm gonna try to, I haven't looked at them yet. Like honestly, the last time I looked at them was when I took them. And so, or when I did the pre-selection rather. And so, yeah, so we'll do all of this together and see how it goes. So usually what I do is that I kind of go through the images one by one and kind of rate them in terms of like how much I like them. So, and if I don't like them that much, I can just not.
Can I ask a quick question, Yannis?
Yes.
This is from someone in the chat here. Sean has asked a question, which I think is a great question, which is, sort of how would you categorize your work? Is it lifestyle? Is it fashion? How would you categorize your photography? And I would sort of tag my own version of that question on there. I was really wondering the same thing. When I look at your photography, I see a broad range of photographic influences, from fashion certainly to also like conceptual photography. And I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you think about it. Do you think about any of those categories, or how does it work for you?
Not really. I'm definitely influenced by all of these categories. Like I'm influenced by fine art photographers as well as fashion photographers. And so I think about them, but I don't really try to fit into, like a box. I'd say like I guess it really would depend on um whatever story I want to tell at the time, right? So like if I feel like um more fashion is needed in a certain context, then it'll skew more towards fashion photography rather than um rather than just purely fine arts photography, which I think would be kind of like this series, for instance. It's a little more like fine art, I'd say, and a little less like the traditional fashion photography with like the type of images that we usually see in like editorial, etc. And so, yeah, I'd say it depends on the context, I guess. So I don't really think about it that much, honestly. But I am influenced by all of these.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how you've like integrated all those really diverse influences in your work.
Yeah, thank you. So now I'm just doing the selection. The first time I'm reading them, it's kind of random, and then I'm deciding, and then I'm actually gonna limit it down to 6 or 8. So you see, like some of these images are gonna need kind of like editing and like extending the background, kind of that kind of thing. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And Yannis, I've been looking over at the chat and not looking at your screen 100% of the time. How are you selecting this? Are you doing star ratings? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you have a particular system, like 5 is awesome, 1 is throw out, or how do you?
Yeah. I just honestly, I just do 4 and 5. And like if it's not a 4 or 5, I guess there's really no reason for me to select it, I guess. Yeah, and then sometimes what I do when some images are very similar, I just look at them, kind of like compare them. I select the 3 and then I type N. And so you see, like, you're able to see kind of all of them one next to, like, and kind of decide which one you like best. I'm very indecisive. So usually this takes a long time, but because we're pressed for time today, I'm gonna try to be quick. Um, but yeah, usually I just stare at these and I don't know. It takes me a while.
There's a lot of really nice positive comments on your work coming in the chat here, Yannis. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank
Stunning
you.
work. Amazing stuff. And Asa wants to know what qualifies as a good rating when you're making your choices. How do you decide that this photo is good versus this other one?
I guess if it's well for me, if it's well, I see it as well. The question I asked myself is it a good addition to kind of the body of work you already have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
Like,
really interesting.
and
So
when I
you're
say
judging
the
it
body
like
of work, I mean like the broader kind of like all of the photos you've taken ever in life. And so like does it show like more range, more creativity, and kind of is it consistent with like the message that you try to come across or to share with your work and like these, and also is it like does it, because there are some images that you see and like the initial reaction is, for me anyways, it's always the best kind of judge of an image. Like whatever, like the first few seconds, your reaction to the image in the very first few seconds are to me the most authentic, because it's like the first time you've seen it, your brain, like it's the first time your brain kind of discovers the image, right? So like it really tells you whether or not, like how you feel about it. And yeah, so I guess to me it's which one speaks to me in like that initial reaction. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that kind of it sounds like a combination of both. You go with your gut and what you feel when you look at it right at first, but also you're considering it within the broad context of your whole body of work. That's really interesting. For me, it's like, is it in focus?
I mean, yes, there's always, obviously there's that too. Like there's like is it in focus? Is it like sharp enough? Like did the camera capture what they needed? Because sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes something else is focusing when it's really like when you meant to capture or to focus on something else. And so yeah, obviously those as well are the questions that I consider.
And then I know you have a lot of stuff you want to get to here. I don't want to slow things down too much, but we have a lot of great questions coming in. So if it's okay with you, I'll
yeah, of course.
I'll keep
and I'll try
to
to work as I go as well.
Oh yeah, I can't walk and chew gum, so I get the difficulty of multitasking. So there's a question from Ferry. Any tips on how to work with indoor lighting?
Indoor lighting. Do they mean like like actual existing lighting, or do they mean with like flashes and strobes, etc.?
Yeah, that's great. I don't actually know. Let me ask you about your lighting for this shoot here. Can you talk a little bit about what you did there?
Yes, this was in a photo studio in Paris. So it was like the lighting was very basic. It was like a kind of large softbox that was kind of positioned at 90 degrees from the models and kind of like above them. And yeah, and then I think I had like a strip box right behind on the left to kind of light, but like behind the models to kind of give a little more light to the background so that you can see kind of like the sparkles and stuff. And yeah, so it was very basic. And then I had a reflector like right next to the softbox to kind of add to or to fill in
And was this a fairly small space, the studio, or was it big? Like what's the space like that you
It
shoot?
was not big and it wasn't small either. Like it was a kind of like it was I'd say I don't know, it wasn't big, but it wasn't like extremely small. It was like and but this type of shoot, I could have done this in my living room, for instance.
Mm.
Like this is the kind of thing that you do, and I'm usually like when I work, especially here in Canada, it's most of my indoor shoots are in my living room. Like if we can go, this one was here. This one too. This image. Not this one. This like most of my indoor images are. I do them like this one as well. I do them in my living room in like usually with like one to two lights. Like it's usually very basic and usually very to the point. Um, I don't usually tend to do like a whole lot of complex lighting because to be honest, I'm not a very technical photographer. Like I try to think about what I kind of the image I have in my mind and then try to go to like through whatever way I can to like get there, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's a great lesson, and you don't you're doing this stuff in your living room a lot of the time. You don't need a
Yeah.
fancy setup to produce amazing work. So that's a great lesson.
Yeah, you just need like I guess enough space and to move the furnitures around every now and then. Like cause where I'm taking photos is where I'm seating currently. Like this would have been my like the backdrop and then I would be here with like the lights and stuff.
Wasn't there someone, now I can't remember who it was. Isn't there some famous French photographer? Maybe he wasn't even French. There was some photographer who made some joke about like photography is like, 10% genius and 90% moving furniture or something
Yeah.
like that.
Honestly.
Someone
But
in the
it
chat probably knows and can post who it was who said that. And there's a great question here from someone who I have to apologize to in advance for butchering the pronunciation of your name, from Ayodeji, saying fabulous shots and asking about how you
thank
select
you.
your models.
It's a combination of whatever I think is needed and also like whoever is available at the time. And by whoever is available, I mean whoever, like wherever I am, first of all, in the world, like whether I am in Gabon back home or in Paris or in Canada where I live currently. And then also like whoever I think will fit like the specific story. Right. So like for this one, I had a very specific kind of like woman in mind. And so thankfully, I didn't know her personally, but I knew of her. And so it was easy to like get to like yeah, like I kind of use and then you just use like the internet. Like and see like so this model is we went to the same high school actually, but we didn't know each other. I think she's a few years younger than me, so like we didn't, but like I knew of her. And so now that she's modeling and that we were in the same city, I we kind of made that happen that way, and I'm very glad we did because I think she did a great job. And the twins, I've worked with them before, Prince and Majesty, and yeah, they actually, well, when we took these photos, they were in Paris. I'm talking a lot and I'm not doing anything. I'm sorry about that.
That's my fault. In fact, let's blame the audience because they're asking great questions. So
So I'm gonna try to, because I'm like, you have a lot of
I'll
things to
let
do.
you finish your selection here before I relay more questions.
Yeah, so okay, so now what I try to do is that, because so there are 13 here, and so I'm gonna try to look at all of the similar images and kind of pick one. So like between these two, um, I think I like this one better. Between these two, I like the other one better. Here's the, can go. Okay, now we're at 9. And also what I try to think about is like kind of what it looks like as a whole. And so if it like the kind of story, like if it's kind of like a diverse set of images, I'd say, like if all the image kind of show you something else, like something different. So like different like setups, different angles, that kind of thing. So these two images are very similar. So I'm gonna have to remove one. It's gonna have to be that one, although I really like it. Like I really like them, but I think this one is stronger as a whole. Between these two. Okay.
Mia says they're models, they're twins, and their names are Prince and Majesty. It doesn't get any better than
that. Exactly. Yeah. And they're very, like the first time I worked with them, it was actually very, because in real life, like they're very shy and like kind of like reserved. But like as soon as the camera turns on, it's like they kind of know, sorry, I touched the mic. They kind of know how to like, and they have a very good way. I mean, I guess because they're twins, they kind of know how to complement each other and like how to like fill in the space and to create like very dynamic, like and very interesting poses. It was like really it was a great time. I really enjoyed shooting with them. I think these two are kind of similar, so I'm gonna remove that. And so now we're down to 6. All of these are similar as well. I like that better though. Yeah. Okay, so we have those. We're gonna try to edit them and see how it goes. If it takes longer, we'll just add more and like try to do something different. And so, okay, so once I have my selection, what I do in Lightroom is that I kind of do my like cropping first to all of the images, and then I'm going to retouch them individually, like and go to Photoshop, etc.
So this is probably a good transition point to ask a nice question that came in from, I guess I should probably just give a blanket apology to everyone for mispronouncing their name, but from Data asking, what is your favorite and least favorite part of editing photos?
I really enjoy editing photos actually, which I know it's kind of like an unpopular thing to do, like photographer most of, like it's a lot of work, but to me, editing is like when you actually get to be the most critical with yourself in your work, because that's actually when you have like when you're taking photos, you don't really have time to sit with the photos and like look at them and like think about what you could have done better. It's actually it's I think when you're actually editing them and like sitting down with them to see kind of like the mistakes you made and like the technical mistakes you made, like the creative mistakes you made, and no, or not necessarily mistakes, or like, but or like the missed opportunities also, like, oh, like thinking, oh, maybe I could have done this, so maybe for next time, like whenever I'm going to do something similar, I can think of doing this or using this angle or, you know, or using this setting. And yeah, I think editing for me anyways is when you get to really sit with your work and like think about what you did, if that makes sense. Yeah. I really like this here, but I don't like that he has his socks on. I think it kind of takes something away from like the image. So I'm going to have to sacrifice the bracelet because I don't want to see the socks. So that's what is happening right now. Although without the bracelet, it's automatically a weaker image though, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is better. Okay, move on.
There's a question from Mia asking about the crop overlay that you have, the crisscross guides in Lightroom. And I can answer that question actually. When you're in the crop tool in Lightroom Classic, if you press the O key, it'll cycle through the different overlays that are available. So it looks like
Yeah.
Yannis has chosen a the default is the rule of thirds one, but it looks like Yannis, you like to work with a different overlay here.
Yeah, I like that one. Not sure why. I just think I don't know. I like it. I like the way it frames kind of the image. Um, yeah. Because I really want these two to kind of be somewhat symmetrical. Like I want them to be like even. Uh, I need to figure out a way to. I tend to look a lot at this also because I like to see kind of um how it looks like from afar, like as a frame, I guess. And then, so now I'm trying to see, like, I'm trying to make sure these parts of the image are even as well. And I know we see this here, but we're gonna edit that out, it's fine. Okay, I think it works, we'll see. And also in Photoshop, I might do some more like reframing and recropping and stuff. The lighting is very dark here. I'm not sure why. Does anybody have any question while I'm doing this?
I think we're caught up on the questions, actually. I could ask a question. I have all kinds of questions. Let me ask a question. I noticed, and we talked a little bit earlier about your models and how you select your models. I noticed, looking at your work, that you've worked repeatedly with some of the same models.
Yes.
And I was just wondering about, I don't know. I mean, your portraits are really striking and emotive, and looking at them, it feels like you have to have like a really good rapport with your models in order to kind of get the sort of photos that you get. And I'm just wondering how you establish that, rapport, how you work with your models on set, that sort of thing.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think
that was not helpful at all, Yannis.
Yeah, like, because I'm honestly, by nature, I'm not a very outgoing or talkative person, but not in like, I'm just like, usually I tend to be kind of usually very shy. And so, but when I take photos, I don't know, I guess it's just a matter of all the parties involved understanding kind of where you want to go. And so making sure kind of making sure the like what you want to create is kind of clear in everyone's mind, so that we all do our best to get there, if that makes sense. And yeah, so like talking before and talking about like kind of you want to do, what you want to create, and like what it means, and like yeah, I think that's the best way to for everyone to kind of give their best. Like if we all know where we're going, it makes everything easier, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you make them really partners in the creative process.
Yeah. And so, and for a lot of the models I work with, they would also come up with their own, like sometimes I tell them, okay, now just do like whatever you feel like doing. But like they come up with their own pauses, they come up with, sometimes they bring their own accessories, that kind of thing, to add to the story, because I mean, it's them in the images, so like it would make sense for them to contribute in some way other than just being there, I think. Okay, so now what I'm doing first, okay, I'm sorry, I was doing things and talking at the same time. So when I open on Photoshop, what I do typically is that first I always just duplicate the layer, like so that I'm not working on the original, and so that it's kind of, if I make a mistake, if I like do whatever, I can just delete it, if anything, and just start without like harming my actual image. So this is what I did. I duplicated the image. And so what I'm doing now at first is just very quickly taking out like kind of like some of the imperfections with the clone stamp tool. You can use like spot remover, you can use whatever else. I try to use clone stamp because I can control it better. Like I can control like the hardness and like the type of brush, etc. So that's what I like. That's how I do it.
And I was looking at the chat and not paying attention during this crucial transition to Photoshop here. How'd you get in here? Did you use the Edit in Photoshop feature in Lightroom Classic?
Yes. What I did, well, it's Command and E, and so it does just like open. But it's like wait, where is it here? Edit in Photoshop. Yes. So it's that way you can, and once you're gonna save it, it's going to bring the image back to Lightroom, so that you can still work on it and do whatever and export it from there. Okay, so stay here. This image is not going to have a whole lot to do. I think from here, just looking at it quickly, I might work a little bit on making the background a bit more even and fill in some of these spots, and like working on the skin of the model. So what I'm gonna do first is working on their skin. So what I do to do that is frequency separation. And so the frequency separation is something like, it's a way to like kind of edit the skin in like without kind of destroying the image, I'd say. Like, yeah. And so what I do before though is I try to go in first with like a clone stamp quickly, just to like just take out some of like the bigger spots. I mean, there are things that we're gonna live just to make it look like natural. I mean, they're not robots, they're, you know. And so yeah, but there are things like you can tell what is there naturally and what isn't. And so so yeah, like I think these are gonna stay, but like something like this, it's not necessary, if that makes sense. This, but I'm gonna use, okay, so what I'm gonna do first, frequency separation, is I'm going to flatten the image first, just to work on this, and then I'm going to duplicate my image twice, and then on this layer it's going to be Gaussian blur, and sorry, I have to move this around. It's going to be Gaussian blur. I try to put it between 9 or 10, it depends on the image. I think this one, 9.5, is okay.
And this is, sorry, this is part of the frequency separation process that you're setting up here? Okay.
Yes. And then there are like different ways to do that, I think. But this is the way, and there are even like plugins that you can just click on and like it does the job for you. But I don't know, I like to do it, I don't mind. And yeah, so on the second layer, you go to image, apply image. On the layer, it has to be layer 1. And here, instead of multiply, you go to subtract, and you use, when you're going to do it the first time, these numbers are going to be different. So what you want to do is to put 2 and 128. Why? I'm not sure. To be honest, I couldn't tell you why, but it's been working for me so far. So
I feel like that's true of everybody. Like sometime like 20 years ago, somebody invented the frequency separation process, and everybody since then has been like, it totally works. I don't know why. You wave at that cat and it works really well. But really, it's, I mean, the frequency separation allows you to
work on the skin, work on like different sets of textures, I'd say, and like work on the texture separately, and like, yeah, it's
like affect big details without affecting little details, or the other way around. Yeah.
So here, now it's gonna look like that, and then what you're gonna do is go to linear lights, and so you're gonna have to. So what I like to do is I select them both and I put them in a group, so that way you're gonna be able to see kind of the before and after easily. So here, because we're not gonna need a whole lot, honestly. But usually what you do first is, so you go on the layer 1, or what I do rather, you go on layer 1 and you use the lasso tool and you select kind of like a part of the model's face. So it's going to be this. It doesn't have to be just like whatever part you want to work on at the time, I'd say. So what you do is you're going to go back to blur, Gaussian blur, and you're going to see, like, what I like to do is I like to go to the real extreme just to, I don't know why, just to see, and then go back to like what makes sense and what's realistic. Usually it's not above, like it's, when I do it, it's usually around like 13, 12, that kind of thing, so that it still looks fairly natural. And so I think what it does is that it kind of blurs the, I mean, this is kind of, because it's from afar, I think it's kind of fairly blurry a little bit, but yeah, what it does is that it blurs to kind of remove the, to kind of blur out some of the imperfections. And so what I do next is that I go on the layer one, the copy of the first layer, which is the actual texture. And so you just use, like, you can use, I think you can use spot remover as well, but I'm not, what I do is I use the clone stamp tool, and then I just like work on whatever spots or like whatever texture that is unnatural.
And so let me summarize to make sure I understand, and also because it may not be totally clear, the effects of this may not be totally coming across on a compressed video stream. This allows you to kind of blur or smooth or remove kind of larger imperfections, but you're leaving like fine skin. The frequency separation method lets you leave that fine skin texture intact, basically.
Yes,
while removing
exactly. You're gonna see some other images you see are like, they're actual portraits. So like you're gonna see, you're gonna see it clearly, like in some of these, especially like this one. And so so yeah, it's to make it, to work on the skin in like or to me anyways, it's like a non-destructive way. Like it's always like these tools are always to like work on your image without like allowing you to make mistakes, and like allowing you to like go back without having to start from the very, very beginning, if that makes sense.
And if you did that kind of blurring that you just did on his face, if you did that without using this frequency separation method, it would like he would just look like plastic, right?
Yeah. So like that's a good way to kind of keep some sort of like authenticity and like realness to the image, but still removing like things that, you know, would be, that I find personally distracting.
Ferry is commented in the chat. He's against plastic faces. Or she, I guess I can't really tell. Sorry, there are like thumbnail like pictures of people there. It's like about this big on my screen, so I can't tell. Looking at the profile picture, I can't tell what people really look like.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you work on the skin, without frequency separation, like by even, well, in my experience anyways, even when I've used like just the clone stamp tool or something, sometimes it looks like, when, especially when there's a lot of work that you need to do, or if it's like that you really need to work on the texture. Sometimes if you're not careful, it's very visible. Like it's very like you see it right away, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, like they just hairbrushed this image to like death. But yeah, it's so I think for me anyways, it's a good way to do it without doing like a whole lot, if that makes sense. So like these spots on their arms and back, I'm gonna keep because it's natural, and I think they're freckles. I don't know. But they're there.
Okay, fairy is male, just so everybody knows. I just don't like to make assumptions or put my foot in my mouth too much. And then there's a great question from Lynn. How much time do you typically spend on an individual photo?
It depends. It depends on whatever is needed. This is a fairly simple image. So, like, this is not going to take as much as some of the other, like, as the next one, probably. And so I think it depends on like whatever, and it's up to you. It's always up to you. Like, it's always up to whatever you think is like necessary to get to the image that you have in your own mind. So when I'm done with this, what I do is that I flatten everything to get back to the image. And so now we're gonna work on I don't really like these, so I'm gonna try to like kind of make this more even. So I use this might not work. So like I'm just gonna test it and use the patch tool to see if so. The patch tool allows you to like kind of select this section and kind of copy the pattern. Nope, it did not work. It's I find this tool kind of random. Sometimes it works very well. Sometimes it does not work at all. And so yeah, I guess it depends on whatever pattern you have in the lighting. So it did not work. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to use the clone stamp and I'm adding a little bit of hardness just so that it looks kind of part of the background. Like it does not look like I used the clone stamp tool. And what I try to do also is to make it kind of large so that it looks more natural, I think. Actually, could be larger.
So while you're doing this, I think we have a few people who've joined us. Aman just joined us and says hello, which reminds me for anybody who has joined us since we started, we're here talking today with Yannis Guibinga, who is showing us his amazing photography. He does a lot of work celebrating the cultures of Africa and the African diaspora. And he's showing us his editing techniques in Lightroom Classic and in Photoshop.
Yeah. For these kind of backgrounds, it's really random, I'd say. Like it's really like however you feel like. If it looks good enough for you, then that's fine. I think that's okay. I just wanted to break up that line because it's very distracting. Like this line here. To me anyways. Like I see it right away. So like now you don't really see it as much. And so you were not focused on the background because you should be focused on the twins. Okay, so now I'd say the background is okay, maybe here. Okay, so when you're at like when you're close to like the subject, what I try to do is I try to make a selection. This might not work because the lighting is very similar. Yeah, it did not. I try to make a selection just to make sure I keep them out of whatever I'm about to do.
And
So
what is
that
that tool? Is that what
oh,
tool is
it's
selection tool you use there?
quick selection tool.
Quick selection. And so in theory, it will automatically find the edge of
Yeah,
what you're selecting.
yeah. But usually I mean, it works better when the contrast is higher, obviously. Like this is not, I mean, even with the eyes, it's not that easy to see, right? So I think just approximately, it's just to make sure really this part here does not spill into the editing. And then yeah, so what I want to do is I want to try to do it. So I want to make this part a little lighter. Like I just want to add a little more like sparkles or stars. So here what I look at, like, so I take this and then I just put this here. And then I leave and I come back and I take it again. And I put this here. What you can do also, actually, what I'm about to do, is you can use something called clone source to like, so it's gonna allow you to mirror whatever you're cloning. So like this is gonna kind of be reversed. And then you can also put it upside down, or like you can really be very specific in like kind of the angle. And so it allows you to not make it look like you just repeated the same like pattern over and over again somewhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've actually never used that. So it looks like, can you do just an arbitrary angle too? Like you could rotate it some.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
I'm actually gonna do a lot more of this for the upcoming image, because sometimes I think it's necessary, especially when you don't have a whole lot to work with in terms of like texture. And like, you know, when you want to like extend a backdrop or something, and you don't really have like a whole lot of the actual backdrop, what you can do is like you select that small part and then you just mirror it, and so that it looks like it's the same pattern, but it's not the same actual pattern. Like it's not the exact same, if that makes sense. And so it kind of, to the eye, it looks different. So I use that tool a lot. I think it's really useful. Okay, so now I'm gonna work on like the colors and like the basic like editing. You can do that with on Lightroom, but I like to do it on Photoshop as well. So what I do first is that I open Camera Raw, and then I just play with kind of the tools, because it allows me to see so I shot with a Canon 6D for the camera, and so I shot raw, and so like the format is CR2. When you shoot raw, yeah, it allows you to like keep the like the details, I'd say. So like you're able to do some, like you're able to really add a lot more details to the image if you want to. But I don't personally. Yeah, so what I do is that I just move around and see like whatever works, whatever what I think works best. Something about, I'm gonna talk a bit about the skin tone in a minute. So like I'm not really worried about the temperature or the white balance for now. But I'm aware that usually that's what people do first, but I don't really do it. And usually what I do when I'm in Camera Raw too is that I go to because I like very pronounced colors in my images, but there's not really a whole lot of colors here. So, but usually I play with the saturation and vibrance tool as well. And yeah, so after I do the initial Camera Raw, like very first kind of editing, I use curves and I work on the contrast of the image. I don't really use, I try to stay at RGB. I don't really use the other three because I don't really have any use for them for now. But it always depends on, like, it always depends on what you're working on, right? Like, it always depends on, like, the image you have, like the lighting you had, etc., the colors you have. Like, it's really, there's never a set way of doing things. As you can see, this is very minimal.
And I couldn't quite tell what you were doing there, Yannis. Were you using curves to were you boosting the shadow areas a little bit? Is that what you were?
Yeah. So I use curves to play with the.
I see. Okay.
Primarily, I think that's really the only thing I use it for, is to like kind of play with the shadows. And yeah, so what I do with the skin tone, because I don't really like when skin is too orange, I use a cooling filter. It's always the 82 cooling filter, the last one. And then I put it like it's very minimal. But I mean, I see the difference, so I use it. Like if you see you kind of see like how this is slightly more orange than this. And so, yeah, I think I like my images to be a bit more neutral than warm.
So that's another Photoshop feature I've never used. Was that an adjustment layer, the cooling filter?
Yes, it's an adjustment layer. Yes, okay. It's a photo filter.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you can probably get there by just the temperature and like color balance or something. But yeah, I think for that, I like to use that one specifically because I have more control, and I can be more specific with what I do. So now I'm gonna try to just add a little more sharpness to the image. I use Smart Sharpen and kind of see here. I'm gonna go back and edit that again because I think it's still a bit spotty. Yeah, and you can see with the preview, it's all, again, it's like very minimal, but it's I think it's just to give a little more details to some of these areas that were like not captured properly. And yeah, I think the editing is good, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to just edit that a little bit more. For this one, because I already did frequency separation once, I don't think it's necessary to do it again. just try to be, what I do is that I just reduce the opacity a little bit just to not make it like flagrant, that you've retouched the skin.
So I want to say hi to Michael and Carlos, and looks like
Hi,
Lindsay,
Michael.
some people who've joined us recently. This is Yannis Guibinga, who's here with us today, an incredible photographer showing his editing process in Lightroom Classic and Photoshop. Thank you guys for joining us. And Carlos, I see you came over from the YouTube Live so that you could ask questions in the chat. So yeah, please just go ahead and post your questions there and I'll pass them on to Yannis. And Yannis, let me say, it looks to me like you're running on battery and you're at 20%. Do you have
I completely forgot about that.
Do you have a power adapter you can plug in?
Yes, I do.
I don't think that 20% is going to get us the rest of the way through.
So. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, I'm about to do that. It's right here, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you need to leave, I could I can improvise. I could do some jokes or something.
No, it's right here. We're good.
Whew, everybody's thankful for that.
Okay. I think this is okay. I do think I might need this a slightly warmer just to make it a little more like gold. Okay. Actually, no, I think that was too much. Yeah,
so Carlos wants to know, how long did it take you to reach this level of skill in your editing?
I don't think I'm that skilled, but thank you. I think it took me, because I went to professional photography school for a year. And so some of the things, like some of the tips that I'm showing you now are things that I've learned there, like the frequency separation process that I used a bit earlier. That's something I learned in school. But I've been editing photos on Photoshop especially for I'd say maybe 4 years. Yeah, but I'm always but it's always like a learning process, right? Like you always learn little tips and tricks here and there every day. That always allows you to be like quicker with the work. Okay, so this is the final image. I think this part here is too.
So you saved that in Photoshop, and you saved it in Photoshop and closed it in Photoshop, or maybe you didn't even close it. You saved it in Photoshop and it comes back into Lightroom Classic.
Yeah, it comes back. So when you export it from Lightroom Classic to Photoshop, when you save it on Photoshop, it goes right back to Lightroom. And then you can export it from there, and then you can do whatever. I really want to work. I'm gonna skip that one, although I want to work on it too. But I really want to work on that one first, because I think that's gonna take us a minute. It's going to be so the plan is to work on this background here and then remove essentially this overexposed like section of the image, and we're going to do that by kind of replicating this area and kind of making it like filling it out that way. I'm probably gonna make a few mistakes along the way, but it's gonna be fun. I think if it works, it's gonna look good.
Well, I think your comment about, we're always learning is a great one. And I have totally learned things from watching you over the last few minutes. Someone who just joined us recently, Brian, commented in the chat that he's just been watching a few minutes and he's already learned some new stuff. So yeah, we're all learning all the time.
I'm happy for that, because I was kind of because I'm not the most like Photoshop heavy or like technical person, so I was scared that what I was gonna show. I mean, we can close that actually. What I was gonna show was gonna be like repetitive. Okay, so what I did is, so again, I opened it, I duplicated the layer. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna fill this in. I mean, this is easy. You can just do like maybe a bit. No, it's fine. Here. So what I do is I select here, actually here. You just place your, hold on. You place your clone stamp on top here, and then you go down here and you press shift, and then it's gonna kind of fill in like a straight. I didn't do it proper. Actually, yeah, it didn't. The opacity was at 70, so I'm gonna do that again. So you start from the top you press shift, and then you do this, and so that fills in without you having to like travel all the way through. So yeah, so that's gone. So here now, for this part here, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna start from the bottom because it's the easiest way. I mean, you can do these things like there's the great thing about Photoshop is that there's a million ways to get where you want to go, right? Like you can really go about things, like you can really have a completely different process than mine and like get to the exact same results. Because I mean, Photoshop is like has so many tools and like so many kind of small little things that can help you and make it easier for you to edit your images. So again, what I do here is that I select this part just so that I want to make sure that it does not spill into like the bracelet. And so I reduce this, and then I think it looks fine. But just to be sure, I think it looks fine, but just to be sure, you can also like, because this was already here, right? So this is natural. You can just do that so that it looks kind of better. And then do kind of, no. Yeah. So this is before and after. Okay. So this is left. So you're gonna do the same, well, I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna just select this part.
Yannis, what are you doing when you are subtracting from that selection? It looks like you drew the selection initially and it selected part of the bracelet, which you didn't want, and then you got rid of that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. So you subtract when you, okay, so for instance, when you do the initial selection, okay, I'm gonna start again. When you do the initial selection, right? This is what the computer gave you. But obviously you don't want this part right here. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna subtract. So you're gonna go here. I have a MacBook Pro, so like on my MacBook is the option button, but you can just go here and like it's going to go to like the subtract, and then to actually remove the selection. And then yeah, so it works, and you can do that subtract tip with this. You can do it with lasso. You can do it you can do it with most of the. I think you can also do it with the magic. Where is it? The magic wand tool. Like you can really it's a pretty nice tool to like allow you to go back on your selection pretty easily without going from scratch.
Got it. So when you did it, you were using the keyboard shortcut,
Yeah.
which on
Yeah,
Mac
but
is Option. So that would probably be Alt on Windows.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Here. And then, okay. So the rest, I mean, I don't need to do the rest because whatever. So I'm going to start from the top. I just made that. Actually, I'm going to start here because the selection is here. And yeah, again, clone stamp. And you just do, actually for these type of, what I like to do is I like to be a little bigger. And then, but you have to be mindful of the lighting. Like try to, don't go somewhere that has, don't go here and replicate it over here because the lighting is going to be different. So it's going to look like you worked on it. Like it's going to, so try to make it like something similar. So like close to it or like right next to it is usually your best bet, I'd say. Maybe here. And then you just use, I know we're going to see their hands at some points, okay? Yeah, that's how it looks. So for this, because I don't like that line, that black line, the top, so I'm going to try to kind of bring some of this pattern here and just do it like lightly and just do like that, just so that it looks a bit more even. So
do you think about this? Do you think about this stuff when you're on set? Do you think like, hey, can we get some more of this background? Or do you think, don't worry about it. I'm going to fix it in post. I know I can do that. So it's fine. Or
I mean, there are things, obviously, if you can fix it on set, it's better because it's less work for you. But there are moments where it's like you're going to have to take the image you want or to take the very specific angle that you want. Like you can't always have like the amount of, because this was a tissue, like this was fabric. So it was like, this was just the amount of fabric that existed. Like you couldn't extend it any longer. I mean, I guess we could have doubled them, but yeah, so I think sometimes I try to make it as easy as possible on set, but there are moments when I know that, okay, I'm gonna need to like extend the background or something, or do some sort of editing. So this is the before and after. So yeah. So now we're about to do the most. We're gonna try to fill all of this in to make it less overexposed. Okay. So what I want to do first is I want to select again the area that I'm going to work on. This is going to be trickier because there are a few things that need like closer attention. So it's very light, so you need to like actually zoom in and like make sure again, you can subtract when you see that, like when you see that things are, the selection has not been done properly. See, that was too much. Subtract this. Click. Sometimes when it's like a very small area, you can just click on it. Click on it, you reduce, even if it's 8, it's fine. And then you just like here, you just click on it. And yeah, this is I should have done this first actually, because it's not going to be quick. For this, you can try. If you just click right next to the area you want to work on, sometimes it's just going to do it for you. And yeah, but then sometimes it's like too much. And think it's always better to have to get in a little more. I find it a little better to get in to go into the dark a little more, and then then kind of leave the whites, because then you're leaving space for like when you're gonna see, when you're gonna actually fit it in, you're gonna see that there's like some space missing. Okay, this is way too big. So the selection here is good for the most part, except here.
So Shahid has a comment in the chat saying the pen tool is a great option for this sort of area. I think that speaks like exactly
That's very true.
What Yannis was saying earlier, which is there's so many different ways to accomplish similar results in Photoshop.
Yeah.
So many different tools that let you kind of work in the way that you want to work. So
the pen tool would actually be best for like these kind of like curves and stuff. But to be quite honest, I'm very bad with the pen tool. It's something that I've never, like, I don't know, I just don't get it.
I'm in the same boat.
It's like, I just find it so weird. Like you click and then I don't know.
Why doesn't that thing ever curve the way I want it to?
Yeah, exactly. Like
I know that's on me, but still.
but I do, like when you're good at it, because I have like friends, etc., who are like very good at it. Like when you're good at it, it's great. Like you can be very precise when it comes to like this would have been very easy for me if I knew how to do that.
But it does speak very much just to the kind of flexibility of Photoshop. Like there's just
Yeah.
so many different workflows you can
And
have.
then I could also do like the lasso tool and just literally go and draw. And then I could use the magnetic tool too that I like to use sometimes. Like there's really so many ways. Or I could have actually I probably could have done that. Why did I not do this? Hold on. Or I can use, there's something I like also that's actually, let me deselect it. I'm gonna try it.
Well,
Color range.
I feel like you just undid a whole bunch of work there, Yannis.
I know I did, but it's fine. So this is a thing that I like. I mean, I know it's fine because this is very light, so I know it was gonna catch it. Um, color range. I mean, it really didn't do it the way I wanted to, but I wanted to show color range also to people because I think is especially when you have like an image that's very strong in contrast, it's gonna make the selection literally for you. Like it's very easy.
So during this quiet moment, I'll say a few words again for anybody who's joined us more recently. This is Yannis Guibinga, and he is showing us his process for editing photos in Lightroom Classic and in Photoshop. And maybe I'll ask a question as well. I'll try to completely distract you so that you can't do this work, Yannis. Yannis's photography involves exploration of the cultures of Africa and the African diaspora. I wanted to ask, Africa obviously is a huge continent with a huge diversity of cultures. Is there a particular area where you focus your interest and attention?
For the most part, it's sub-Saharan Africa, like so kind of below the Sahara. So like it would mostly be, I'd say, West and Central Africa, because I'm from Central Africa. So obviously my interests and kind of and my experiences too, like the things I'm familiar with are more like even if it's not from my own country, like things around that region are kind of more similar from one another. So there are things like I'm very interested in also exploring parts of cultures that a lot of people don't really know about. And so I'm very interested in my own kind of, well, when I say my own, I mean Gabonese, like kind of cultural um, artifacts and like cultural heritage, because it's a very small country that most people don't even know about. And and yeah, so I'm really interested in like driving kind of some of these stories forward with my work. So like I'd say if there's a region, I'd say Central Africa. Okay, so now I selected this. I didn't do the entire reflector. So this is a reflector that's behind her. I don't know if it was clear, but it's a reflector, like the golden reflector. And so I selected just the part that I want to work on. I don't have to do the whole thing because it's not necessary. So what I'm gonna do now is, again, we're gonna work a lot with the clone stamp because I want to kind of replicate um, the texture right here to kind of put it over here and to make it less overexposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little hardness and try and see how it goes. When you do something like this, always try to go big, or I always try to go big because it looks a little more natural, I'd say. I forgot to add this part here. Yeah. See, I just clicked on it and it just filled it. It just filled it by itself because of the contrast. The contrast is so strong that it just does it for you. So it really, like, the efficiency of like some of these tools are really going to depend on your image and the lighting and like what the program is seeing, basically. Okay, so here, I think for the most part, we're going to use this section because it's the best. It's the one where the texture is at its best, I think. Yeah, so again, what I do is that I go to a place and I click on the area I want to work on, and then I go back to that same place. Otherwise, if you just keep going, you're going to run into her again. You don't want that.
And when you're selecting the area that you're sampling from, is that an option click to sample? Or
yes, option click. Sorry.
Option click.
Also, what we're going to do now is that we're going to use a lot of clone source. So for here, basically, I want to duplicate. Actually, I should have done that from the beginning, actually. To make it not only to make it different, but also to like, just so that it works better in terms of lighting. Like it works like, it looks like a little more real, I'd say. So if you don't go back to the same spot, you're gonna run into the model very quickly because you're only working with a very small area, and you don't want to go back here because it's too dark, and you don't want to go down here either. So like for here, I'm going to duplicate. See, I'm gonna use clone source, and so now it's going to mirror this whole area over here. And so yeah, I just click it. I don't really and like whatever you think feels natural, like don't try to repeat the same patterns in the same spots because it looks very clearly like you did something. Like try to make it kind of, try to move a little bit, but try to stay within this vicinity of the space you're on. I know that here I'm gonna need to like pronounce and like do something. So I'm gonna go back to that later.
And the clone source here, just for anybody who didn't catch this earlier, for anyone who's joined us more recently, I want to make sure I have this right, Yannis. The clone source is letting you take the area you're sampling from, but flip it like vertically or horizontally so that it doesn't look exactly like where you copied from.
And you can flip it upside down. You can flip vertical, you can flip horizontal, you can actually put in the angles if you want to be very specific. There's a lot of things you can do with the clone source that allows you to actually duplicate something but still make it like different.
That's very cool. Yeah, because then it's way less. Then it's not obvious that you did that.
Yeah, it's a very, very useful tool, or I find it to be very useful for that, like especially when you need to something like that, like when you work with small areas, and small, like you don't really have a lot to work with, it allows you to kind of extend or get more out of the texture, that the small texture that you do have. So I think it's great. For this year, I'm gonna try to stay in this area because it's in the bottom, so it's a little lighter and it's a little less like kind of golden. And here, like just try to see where you are in relation to the other side of the image. And just, so like here, because here you see when he's grabbing, it looks a little more, like it's a little darker. So I'm not gonna go all the way over here because that's not gonna look right. So I'm gonna try to still be a little darker though, so that it looks like there's some sort of gradient, and so that it looks a little more realistic. And the first time I did this, it was very clear in like the fingers area that this was worked on. So I'm gonna try to make it as natural as possible. We'll see how it goes.
Couple of comments in the chat here from Brian, from Umakorn, saying that they never knew about or never used clone source before, and same for me.
It's really cool.
So
you guys should try.
I'm going to use that tool for sure.
Honestly, there has been times, especially I'd say, especially if you want to extend the background, which we're gonna do if we have some time. It's very cool. Like it's very useful. I don't know how it came across. I think I Googled it. I was like, can you like mirror it or something? I think I needed it for a very specific thing, and I just discovered it, and it's like a lifesaver, honestly.
I think I may be spouting falsehoods now as a representative of Adobe. I should really know, but I think it's a relatively new feature in Photoshop. I think I knew of it, but I'd never used it or seen this panel, so that's fantastic.
It's a really great one. Like it's very, yeah. Okay, so now I've done like the most. So I deselected, and I'm going to try to work on like some. So I think this area, for instance, needs a little more texture. So I'm gonna do upside down just to change it around again. And now it looks like a different thing. Again, I'm gonna try to make it a little bigger so that it looks, that's too much. So it looks a bit more natural. I think maybe 600. This here, and then you just click. It's too hard. Something like that. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Yeah. And then because you don't want to repeat the same, change it around, you click, no. Oh. I think this part isn't even slightly.
And I just want to give you a heads up, Yannis, we've got about 20 minutes left before we have to say our goodbyes. Just want to be sure you have time to get down.
I cannot believe I really thought we were about to do 8 photos.
Right?
How unrealistic.
Well,
at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna say 13 or something. Because I thought 2 hours is a long time. But I mean, we're talking too, so it's fine.
Yeah, you might do that many photos in this amount of time if you were just working on your own and you didn't have me peppering you with questions.
And also, like, it really did, because there are some series where the editing is very minimal. It's literally just the skin, maybe the colors a little bit. Like, I very rarely have to do all of that. But I really wanted to do this for Adobe Live, because I think like you learn more, like you learn a bit more things when you do like some of these more complex pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly have.
I'm gonna add a little more hardness just because I think for the most part it looks okay for now, and but I do want it to be like the texture to be a bit more pronounced in certain areas, like here. But then if it's more pronounced, it looks too dark. That's my issue. So I need to find a comment like here, I'd say. Yeah, I think if we play with this one. Yeah. See, if you find a good, like an area that works for whatever you want to do, just go back to it every time. Oh, and then this too. Okay.
And in the chat, Andre says, nice photo.
Thank you, Andre. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to work on the finger. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Think hard. I think we can just do that. Does anybody else feels like they're doing surgery or something when they're editing photos?
Somebody commented in the chat earlier, and I apologize, I don't remember who. It was back up quite a ways in the chat, but somebody said that this sort of editing feels very meditative. So not maybe that might be the opposite end of surgery. Surgery sounds really stressful to me, but
I mean, it's like because you like when especially when you do like this kind of like very small, very I'm always like because you have to be very meticulous. Otherwise, like it's very easy for it to go left. And so yeah, but I mean it is also meditative because especially when you work like by yourself because you're just thinking and like sometimes you listen to music or I listen to music but it's usually like calm or something. It's never like loud music. Like it's usually like more like calm. This still does not look. Okay, I see the issue.
but yeah, I am feeling very relaxed watching you. I did. What kind of soundtrack do we have? It's too bad. Maybe there is a soundtrack. I don't know. Is there like an Adobe Live soundtrack?
This is not the best. This is not my best finger editing. Sometimes when you feel like you've taken too much, what I do is I go inside and I just bring it out a little more so that it looks a little more like that. I think it looks better than last time, but it's still not like here. I think the issue is that this looks too sharp, and so it looks like pasted into the image.
Oh yeah, zoomed out, it looks. I mean, I guess when you're super zoomed in like this, I can kind of see what you're talking about, where you want to do some improvements. But like zoomed out, it looks totally convincing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine. I just here need a little more. Again, just go from inside.
If I won't distract you too much while you're working here, let me ask another question.
Yes, please do.
And again, for anybody who's watching us on Behance, there's a chat pod there. If you have questions, please go ahead, put your questions right in the chat pod, and I'll relay them to Yannis. Chatpod's been a little bit quiet with questions, so I'll jump in with my own. I was looking at your website, and you're not just a photographer; you're a writer as well, and you've done a fair bit of writing about other photographers. And I was just curious, like
Yes.
how your examination of other photographers and your insight into their work has affected your own work.
I think it allowed me to, because a lot of the photographers I've talked to in that context, um, have very specific, very particular either process or just like visual identity. So like they have a very particular way, or like their images look a very particular way. Like you're able to recognize that this is their image right away if you're familiar with them, if that makes sense. And so it allowed me to like kind of go inward and think about my own work and kind of validate, I'd say, my my desire to kind of limit my own self, and to kind of limit myself to the subject matter that I am most interested in, which is um, exploring identity and culture through portraiture, like these kind of portraiture, like fine art portraiture or like editorial, whatever it is, but through like the act of photographing people. And so, yeah, I think it allowed me to really think about my own work and like kind of, like I said, uh, validate like validate the fact that I it is important to just focus on like your own specific message and vision, I'd say.
So that sounds like you worked very deliberately to kind of develop and establish a personal style. Is that is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
And that sounds like maybe in your experience that's common to talented photographers. Like people really kind of work to hone a style.
Yeah, I'd say it's well, at least it's what I gravitate towards. Anyways, like it's what I'm very interested in, kind of these photographers who are able to limit themselves deliberately, but expand within the limitations they gave themselves. Like, so like to have, so for instance, one of my all-time favorite artists is an artist called Lina Iris Victor. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with her work, but she is a British and Liberian artist who's like between photography and painting. And she, like, her work is very limited to like maybe like three colors, and like a very, like, she has a very defined, a very specific visual identity, but the way she's able to expand and create worlds within that very specific and very like limited um constraint, I think is fascinating. And I think, yeah, that's what I like the most about just artists in general, not just photographers, but artists, whether it's even painters or like any other kind of art. I think there's beauty in limiting yourself.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
that is a really insightful way to think about style and developing a style as a process of limitation. That's
Yeah,
really interesting.
because it's like, you know, that there are things that you're not going to do even if they look interesting for others, just because it's not adding or contributing to your own like body of work, if that makes sense. So now that I'm done, I mean, I could keep going, but we're running out of time, so like I could still work on that and be more, but I think we did like the thing for the most part. We were able to remove the backdrop and like reduce this over here and kind of replicate the texture to make it look like a moon, which was what I was going for. or like something, but I think it looks like one. And yeah, so now I'm gonna work on like the colors. So I'm gonna play with the shadows with the curves, but very like very steadily. I don't really work a whole like it's um my process is very minimal. Like it's I only move like I don't go past 15 most of the time anywhere. Because for the most part I think the camera is giving me kind of the lighting and the colors that I'm looking for. It's just like I just need to enhance them and push them a little bit. Here I'm gonna reduce the lighting. Okay. And add a little more vibrance. Make it slightly warm, which is uncharacteristic, which is something I don't do often, but I think for this image, you might need it a little bit. And the skin. I think it's far enough that you don't even really need to do the frequency separation. You can just do like very quick. Also, because we don't have a lot of time left, you can do like a very quick clone stamp type of retouching.
I'm going to give you about 1 more minute, Yannis, before we ease into our closing here.
Okay, sounds good. I like to do, I actually should have done the skin first. I like to finish with like the colors and stuff because it's the thing that's going to take you the less time. And it's also like, to me, I mean, it makes more sense to work on the colors when you worked. Also, I probably should have done this a little better. When you like, when the actual retouching looks like what you want it to look like. And so yeah, when I finish, although it's not really needed here, I always try to add a little bit of sharpness just to make it a little sharper. And yeah.
That is awesome. So I am going to wrap us up here. I want to thank everybody who joined us here today for the live stream. I want to especially thank Yannis. We've been watching Yannis Guibinga showing us his incredible photography that he's done of African culture and the culture of the African diaspora, as well as his editing process in Lightroom and in Photoshop. Yannis, can you take 30 seconds or so to tell us about what you'll be talking about tomorrow, because I will be back with Yannis tomorrow for Adobe Live as well.
Yes, so tomorrow we're going to be editing another set of photos. It's going to be less edit heavy. It's going to look like, in terms of lighting, etc., it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to see, hopefully we're going to learn some new things and some different things, and it's going to be yeah, like different photos. So probably a slightly different process, slightly different tools, and yeah, still going to talk about photography and all these good stuff.
I am looking forward to it. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who joined us. I hope you're able to join us again for part 2 with Yannis tomorrow. I am really looking forward to that. And we've got plenty of other great stuff coming up for you today on Adobe Live as well. Our schedule continues throughout the rest of the day. So let's see, right after this, hey, Paul Tranny is coming up with an Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. That is followed by editing video for social with James and Anna. And then the last Adobe Live show for today will be Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge with Howard. So stay tuned for all of that goodness coming up. And thank you everyone so much for joining us. And thank you, Yannis.
Thank you. Bye.